Hello, my lovely viewers. We've now reached the last two chapters of this week's story. Ready to know how it ends? Let's find out then. Chapter 9. Difference between past and future. Ian looked up, her blue eyes meeting the tall woman's sharp dark blue ones. She had heard of this woman before, and I told her about her. This was Isis, the high priestess, that loyally served the young pharaoh, and the wielder of Millennium Necklace, which gave her power to see unknown future. Ian swallowed, watching the delicate female in front of her. Her long white robe barely reached her feet, while golden jewelry which she wore broke the plain appearance of her simple-looking dress. She also wore a white headdress which fell down her body, going past her elbows. It was decorated with gold, and one of the nicest details on it was a golden bird. And of course, among all that, Isis had her Millennium Necklace on her neck, which wasn't surprising at all. Have you ever walked through the royal gardens? Isis asked, her soft pink lips curving up into a soft smile as she spoke. Ian shook her head in denial. No, I haven't, she replied. Would you like to? The priestess asked, and now Ian said nothing. She bit her lip instead, glancing away from Isis. If she said no, she would seem rude, while saying yes may sound too greedy. That's what Ian thought. Upon seeing doubt present on Ian's face, Isis turned on her heel before glancing at the girl over her shoulder. I shall take that as a yes then. Follow me, she said, as every word that left her mouth was filled with patience. Ian nodded, deciding to follow the young priestess. She got up with her, and soon after the two stepped outside. She got up with her, and soon after the two stepped outside. This was an unknown part of the palace to Ian, so she allowed herself to glance around every now and then. The garden was simply beautiful. It was filled with bright green bushes and few ponds, which were surrounded by many colorful flowers. Their frail petals went from pure, innocent white to bright blood red. There was also a big white pool filled with water. Many light pink and white lotus flowers floated on the calm, clear water surface. The sun's dying rays kept plants warm, while peaceful water reflected its last sparkles. Wind played with bushes and leaves, and it carried soft, faint sounds of rustling upon its invisible wings. It touched the clear water ever so slightly every now and then, pushing the delicate petals and pastel-colored lotus flowers. Soon, endless sky above the area turned pink and orange, signaling that the day is finally ending. However, The two girls continued to walk through the garden, enjoying the faint melodies and lullabies of nature. So, Ian, may I ask you a question? Isis asked, her gaze fixed on the scenery before her. Of course, Ian replied with respect, glancing at the other female before looking back at the breathtaking setting. You have to be honest with me now, Ian, Isis started. Again, the comfortable silence filled the space between two young women who stopped walking. Suddenly, the silence became bothering and uncomfortable for Ian, as she was wondering what Isis' question was. The anxiety and nervousness made Ian's heart beat faster in worry and concern, and her eyes narrowed just slightly. Finally, the stillness in the air was broken. The silence in the air was broken again. What was your life like when you were asleep that this? Priestess asked, looking at the girl beside her. Upon hearing Isis' words, Ian took a deep breath and then let out a heavy sigh as she looked down at the ground under her feet. With words stuck in her throat and her lips slightly parted, she closed her eyes, thinking. In the pure darkness, she saw the scared little girl curled up in a ball, her knees brought close to her chest. Her pitted skin was covered in fresh scars and bruises, and dry blood decorated the untouched parts of her skin and her torn clothes. Her eyes were red, swollen, and full of warm, salty tears, which kept running down her soft yet dirty cheeks. Metal cups were tightly attached to her frail ankles, and chains kept her feet close together. She wept because of the pain she wasn't used to, and her cries echoed through an empty space. The young girl suddenly faded away, and an older girl replaced her. This girl fell onto her knees, her messy brown hair hiding her red face. Her dry lips were pressed against each other, longing for water and liquid. Her body showed no strength, and it felt sore. Wounds that faded away were replaced with new ones. A small, innocent female child from before appeared in front of this teenage girl, and she patted her head. It's going to be okay, she whispered, but before the teen could let herself fall into the warmth of this child's touch, she was taken away by a grown-up man. With no air in her lungs, the girl lost her consciousness and fell into the endless darkness and emptiness, slowly fading away. Ian opened her eyes once again. It was horrible, she muttered, but Isis heard these words. She nodded, looking away from the young girl beside her and looking up at the scenery once again instead. I apologize for reminding you of such a thing, Isis apologized, closing her own eyes as she lowered her head. While Ian could see the tragedies she went through when she closed her eyes, Isis saw something completely different. There was a royal balcony from which a young couple watched over their kingdom, wide smiles present on their faces. Showered showered in warmth of sun's soft touch. They held their hands, their grip strong and tight. A brown-haired girl waved at the respectful citizens, happy to see that this kingdom became much a brighter place, and that many criminals and bad people were finally arrested and even executed. Big group of people cheered, bowing in front of their king and new queen. Young children watched the couple in awe, waving happily at the young woman. The free-colored hair Pharaoh's heart was filled with pure affection and joy as he watched his smiling soulmate. The female glanced at him, her cheeks warm and pink, and soon the two of them leaned closer to each other before their lips met. Bright sunshine erased the sea, and as the light died down, there was yet another picture forming. It was the same couple, standing in their private royal chambers, smiling. The blue-eyed woman held a small baby in her hands, and the innocent creature smiled back at its parents. But the young king and queen weren't the only ones happy with their life. Citizens which lived peacefully outside of the palace were just as happy and thankful for their new, brighter lives and fortunes. There was no more human trafficking nor slaves. Pharaoh, along with his wife, did everything he could to stop as much crime and injustice as possible. The kingdom was slowly blooming, shining brighter than ever before. Smiling as she remembered her vision, Isis comforted Ian. "It's going to get better, Ian. Trust me." Chapter 10. Final Confession. Warm sunlight sneaked into the royal chambers and interrupted Pharaoh's deep, peaceful slumber. Upon feeling the well-familiar warmth touching his face, the young man opened his eyes and blinked. At first, his vision was blurry, but soon he could clearly see the golden ceiling above him. A silent yawn escaped his mouth as he rubbed his eyes, his warm blankets covering his firm figure. He stared at the ceiling for some time before glancing at the side, his violet orbs fixed onto the empty space on his big mattress. Atem reached out, his soft hand caressing crumped, silky material, which was rather cold, unlike the blankets that were covering him. His lips parted as he stared at that empty spot, wishing that there was another body beside him. He narrowed his eyes at the thought, though. He has been thinking about such things for some time now. He was old enough and supposed to get a wife by now. Not only that, his royal family tree needed a descendant, but his kingdom also needed a queen. Sighing, the male finally sat up, his silky blanket slipping off his body because of his sudden movements and revealing his half-exposed torso. Fresh morning breeze hit his warm skin, making him shiver ever so slightly as yet another sigh escaped his mouth. He stood up and ran his hand through his spiky hair, making it messier than it already was. Atem stood up, leaving the warm comfort of his bed, and got forth solemnly to get ready for all challenges this new day has to give. He stepped out on his balcony, his eyes fixed onto the already busy civilization. Everyone was already wide awake, on their feet, even at such early hours, when sun didn't even completely rise from behind its own covers and slumber. The young pharaoh breathed in the fresh air, as same thought ran through his mind, provoking him. I have to be patient with that, he mumbled to himself, as if trying to control all of his thoughts and ideas. It wouldn't be good if he rushed to make a decision when it came to such an important thing as marriage. But upon even thinking of marriage or affection, he suddenly remembered Ian and felt as if his heart skipped a beat. He had already realized that his feelings for that young girl were quiet, strong ones. Atem shook his head, face palming, before returning back into his chambers and getting ready for the day. With his royal blue cape flowing in the air, as Atem walked in the circle in his room, and with his hand resting under his chin, the young pharaoh couldn't stop thinking. Today his mind was really troubled by his feelings. He felt confused, restless, and impatient. He couldn't simply wait any longer. This quick and strong heartbeat that echoed through his head and his entire being was more than he could take. The sudden waves of heat and then the sudden empty coldness were also driving him insane. Well aware of his state, he didn't leave his chambers ever since this morning. Anai and Zero did come to check on him, but he told them that he needed some time alone, and with that, he dismissed them without giving them a chance to find out about his issue. The male's hand moved from his chin to his forehead, and he sighed in defeat, trying to pull himself together. Was this what it felt like to be in love? He guessed that it was. Everything happened so quickly, in such a short period of time, but that didn't matter. Love didn't ask for time, place, rank. It just comes, whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not. It simply doesn't care. Groaning in annoyance and bother, Atem closed his eyes, letting silence fill the entire room for once. He tried to pull himself together. That's it. He couldn't let his day pass by like this. He had more work to do, other than to think about his emotions. However, it seems like fate had other plans for him today, since silence was broken by a few gentle knocks on his door. Pharaoh turned to face the door, assuming that it must be worried Anai or angry and annoyed Zero once again. But just as he was about to speak and order them to leave him alone for once and that he was feeling fine, the familiar female figure stepped into the room with her heavy bucket filled with water in her hands. Ian bowed, and Atem immediately closed his mouth, straightening up. He didn't know how to react to this. He gulped, his violent orbs never leaving the petite girl in front of him. Words were stuck in his throat, and he fought the urge to move closer to the girl. Soon after, Ian straightened up, but she avoided looking up at the pharaoh. She glanced at his bed instead, which needed to be made, and blankets and covers needed to be changed. That was one of the things she needed to tidy here. However, the fact that Atem didn't speak up and the awkward, intense atmosphere made her wonder if she should leave. Without hesitation, she spoke up. "If you wish to be alone at the moment, Pharaoh, I can leave," she stated, and Atem immediately replied to her. "No, that's not it. Please, do what you're supposed to. Atem said, before turning on his heel and sitting down on the couch, which stood in the corner of the room, leaning against the cold golden wall. Ian nodded in reply, and she set her bucket down onto the ground before approaching the messy bed. She slowly and carefully removed the blankets and pillows, folding them neatly and placing them onto the edge of bed. She started feeling rather nervous as she could feel the male's eyes following her each and every move. That was true, indeed. Pharaoh carefully observed her movements, his heart beating rapidly. He almost felt as if he regretted telling her to stay. This seemed to be more than he could take at this very moment. Ian walked over to one of the dressers and opened it, only to take new, fresh and clean blankets out of it. Quickly and skillfully, she placed the silky material onto the bed, arranging it and rearranging it a few times until she was satisfied. On the outside, she seemed quite calm, but deep inside, she wasn't. Deep inside, she was fighting these weird feelings of affection and an urge to look up at the young Pharaoh. Oh, how she wanted to see his face once again. She felt warm and safe. All of the insecurities that used to chain her down just weren't there anymore. Before, she couldn't help herself but tremble in fear when in front of a man. But now it was different. Unlike everyone else up until now, Atem had some kind of different aura, a kind, loving one, and that was what she fell in love with. That safe, gentle soul that means no harm. But she couldn't do anything about it, she thought. She was nothing more than a servant, and he was, well, the Pharaoh. Even if they did share that one rather intimate moment with each other, she just couldn't think that maybe he felt something towards her. No one ever did. It felt so wrong to assume that he felt the same. But still, something in the back of her mind did make her think that maybe, just maybe, there was the smallest hint of chance that their feelings were mutual. Ian sighed as she decided that she should stop having silly thoughts and ideas and concentrate on work instead. Dead silence fell between the two, which put Atem's feelings on the edge. He stood up and walked over to the girl slowly. Ian didn't pay attention to Atem's sudden movements at first, and she continued with her work. But she stopped when she noticed that the Pharaoh was standing right beside her. She tried to ignore it, but it made her anxiety grow. Did she do something wrong? She didn't say anything, and she reached out for the last pillow instead. But before she could even touch the soft item, Atem grabbed her wrist. The sudden contact sent shivers down her spine and made her cheeks heat up at the same time. She slowly glanced at the side, allowing herself to actually look up at the Pharaoh. But right after they made an eye contact, she broke it by looking down. What was she thinking? Atem's hand left her wrist and moved onto her shoulder, and he pulled her closer to him. His other hand found its way to her chin, and he forced her to look up at him. He was serious, and Ian surely noticed that. But despite that seriousness which was present on his face and in his eyes, his loud and fast heartbeat could tell otherwise. He leaned closer, and without hesitation, his lips touched her own. Ian was more than surprised at first, but then she gave in. It felt so right to give in now. She kissed back, slowly and slightly uncertain. This kiss awakened many new feelings and realizations. It was gentle and innocent, and it made them both feel safe and loved. It said everything about their feelings for each other that grew deep within their hearts, and it confessed instead of words. Ian closed her eyes, and she wrapped her arms around Adam's neck, only to slowly pull away soon after. The couple took a moment to catch their breath, enjoying the warmth of each other's gentle touch. I apologize, Ian said, her arms slipping away from Adam. Despite everything, she still felt the need to apologize. But who could blame her? She had to apologize her entire life for doing anything that may seem disrespectful. Adam, on the other hand, only chuckled softly and quietly. You never learn, do you? He said, kissing Ian's forehead as his lips curved up into a smile. Ian's heart skipped a beat. It's just that I have never felt like this, Ian admitted in a whisper. Neither did I, said Adam calmly. Do you think this is right? She questioned, looking up at the mail. I'm certain that it is, the Pharaoh replied, and Ian nodded before looking away. Ian, would you like to be my wife? Adam asked, slightly nervous and anxious. Are you sure about that, Pharaoh? I mean, that is a serious question, Ian stuttered, her cheeks heating up. If I wasn't sure about it, I wouldn't have kissed you in the first place, Ian, he explained, letting out a small sigh. I love you, Ian, he confessed honestly, while patiently waiting for the girl's reply. After thinking for a bit, Ian looked back up at Adam, nodding with a smile. I love you too, Adam, she spoke, and with that, she agreed to become Adam's bride. And so they lived happily ever after, the woman spoke, looking down at her tired daughter, who was cuddled up in the soft blankets on her small bed. But Mommy, how did the girl know that she wants to be with him? He didn't give her time to think, the small child commented, seemingly unsatisfied with the ending of her mother's story. Ian, dear, she didn't need time. She knew that she loved him and that she wanted to be with him. The woman chuckled, caressing the young girl's soft cheek. Mommy, did you know that you want to be with Daddy too? Curious child asked, not even thinking about falling asleep now. Yes, I did, Ian's mother replied. I don't get it. How am I going to know if I love someone? Ian pouted. You will know, Ian. You will know. The end. There you have it, guys. This concludes our first story of this Yummy story reading marathon. I'm sure that you enjoyed it, and you're happy that it has a happy ending. Well, guys, this marathon is not over yet. We have one more week we have one more week of it. But I'm still waiting for your votes about the last story that will end this marathon. Even though you already know the story options, because you can easily find them on my community, I'm gonna name them once again. Option 1, A Pharaoh's Love Story in Neverland. Option 2, Love and Betrayal at Hogwarts. And option 3, Maleficent. Be sure to put your favorite story name in the comment section below. And be sure that exact story will be the winning one that will be read by me next week. Until then, bye everyone. Have a great day or night, and I'll see you on my next video.